We're
Well, okay.
live, it seems.
Yeah, boom, we are live.
How are you guys doing?
G'day, g'day.
Yes, indeed. Hey, it's now 9 o'clock p.m. at night where I am. Alex, how is
Yes.
it over there where you are?
Yeah, boom. Oh no. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a delay. Yeah, I'm pretty fine. I'm here in Berlin. It's 8 p.m. and
Yeah, for us it's pretty okay, I guess. But Nick,
oh,
what
okay.
time is it where you are?
It's 4 a.m. in the morning. So we got
It's ridiculous.
this is
Yeah.
you guys talking to me right now. It's
Okay, yeah, I had a delay, so okay. Shall I repeat? Or
Yeah, go ahead,
can,
yeah.
or okay. Yeah, I'm here in Berlin. It's 8 p.m. I'm feeling good. I went out for running, for making some sports before the live stream. And yeah, I'm excited and
Nice.
hope everything runs well. And yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at the world today, I mean, people have been doing more teleconferencing and stuff for necessity, but in this case, we're not even in the same country, so it's a truly global team, which is great, and it works quite nicely, I must say. So
Yes.
greetings to everybody on the stream. If you're joining right now, or if you're watching this video later, which might be because we have also a lot of people who are interested in our stuff in other countries that might not be able to join, but like we need to kind of find a middle way. And Nick is getting up really early, so if you can
Yeah.
make it that early, then that's fine. Maybe you watch this video later. But yeah, I mean, happy to be here, and I think we got some exciting stuff to show. We have some people already on the line, I think. Yeah, we got some viewers already, so that's good. So we're not just talking to ourselves, which helps. I mean, because we speak to each other quite often, so that's nice to see that there's some people there.
Yeah.
Maybe I can start with a little bit of history. So we have about 45 minutes today. What we plan to do and show, not much longer than that. But basically, our kind of history, and then we'll go a little bit more into what we're going to do in the future in a bit. But maybe if you guys seen our stuff already before, you've probably seen a few months ago some kind of beta uses of the Sxratch visualizer, which is actually one of our applications. And already way before that, we've been talking together, and we had a plan of launching a website and launching applications and products and things like that. But that kind of plan changed a little bit when people were really interested all of a sudden in the Sxratch visualizer. So we kind of accelerated certain things and made that happen. So we've been kind of scrambling to do that, which is how we ended up here today. So we actually are launching our website today. It will be available. We are launching our Patreon today. People can get the first version of the Sxratch visualizer, so the 1.0 version officially. They can get that also as of today. And things like that. So I think it's been quite a hectic ride. I mean, last let's say few months at least, but also before that. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, it was amazing for us, because it started just like a brainstorming sessions. We met at first personally at the Sample Music Festival in 2009, and then we shared already some thoughts, some ideas. I mean, you both guys were invited as presenters. Bob, you showed the Catalyst controller. Nick, you showed for the first time Turntablism, which was just great. The whole Sxratch visualizer idea. And yeah, from that, it was pretty an exciting journey somehow. And now we are on a point in a status that we can share finally some products, some applications, and also a hardware concept. Yeah, which is pretty exciting, I guess, for the community.
Yep, exactly. How about you, Nick?
I agree. Yeah. Look, over the last 12 months, I'd probably say I've spent close to 300 or over 300 days in lockdown. So there's been no better way to spend my time and all this energy.
Thanks, Corona.
But yeah, it was a wonderful experience to meet both Bob and Alex in person in 2019 at the Sample Music Festival. Before that, we'd been sort of sharing messages and stuff back and forth over various internet chats and stuff, and and in the last 12 months we've really been able to solidify our friendship and make sure that we get onto the right track with our ideas and concepts, and and it's all with the aim of bringing new and exciting things to the world of turntablism and music production.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good point. Like we've been talking about ideas a lot, right? And then at the same time, we've been really thinking about how can we solidify these ideas into something which people can actually use, whether that's a software application or a plugin or even a hardware product. I mean, we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but maybe we can actually show our kind of a video that we put together, which sort of summarizes, I guess, some of these things we were just talking about how we got here and also what our plans are. And there's some cool footage in there, I think. So maybe we can roll that. So Nick, if you want, go ahead.
No worries.
So hey, my name is Alex from Sxratch and welcome to our Patreon channel. Sxratch is the brainchild of Bob from Helsinki, Nick from Melbourne, Australia, and myself, who lives in Berlin. We got connected years ago through a common interest, scratching.
Wow.
We met face to face for the first time in 2019 at Sample Music Festival. And from here onwards, we combined our ideas, thoughts and passion into what ultimately become our company, Sxratch. Within our combined 40 plus years of experience, we already developed a DJ controller, some music applications and a theoretical framework for turntablism, which has been presented at music universities worldwide. And this is our idea. Traditional concepts of sound generation using keys, strings or sticks have been technologically extended over the last 40 years by two additional tools, fader and disc. We see great potential in the systematic transfer and modeling of Sxratch gestures by capturing the performance data to create software applications or hardware for live music and video production. A while ago we started beta testing our first standalone application, the Sxratch Visualizer app. It can visualize record and fader movement in real time and is a quantum leap for training and education purposes. With your support, we can also progress faster on some of the other projects which are in our development pipeline. For example, the fade application, which generates every imaginable fader sequence and more. Or the timecode modulator to Sxratch MIDI automation in Ableton. And of course, our little baby, the I/O controller, which is a touch-based hardware controller for audio and music production and live performance. There's more stuff coming, and with the help of our Patreons, we cover running costs like the rent of the studio, video production and all the expenses which occur when you start a company or try to secure your IP rights. In return, you get access and technical support to our applications and plugins. Not only that, our Patreons can also influence and vote on what kind of features we will add in the future to these same applications and plugins. Or maybe we will create entirely new ones based on your ideas. So on top of that, we provide free of charge sample packs, MIDI packs, drum packs and tutorials for music production and Sxratch education. If you like what you have seen, please become a Patreon. We would love to have you on board to take this journey together. So, thanks for watching and let's Sxratch!
Yeah.
Cool.
And we're back.
Okay, we're back.
Great.
So hope you guys enjoyed that a little bit. I mean, we spent quite a few hours on the video making the footage, and I think a lot of stuff was left out. Also, we had some crazy bits and pieces here and there
Yes,
from all around the world. But I think it turned out really nice. It kind of really conveys what we're trying to do, and not even everything fits in there. It's really difficult to make that right. But
and
I think go ahead.
Thanks to Escape Kit, to Kim. He's probably joining the live stream. You know, he's the guy who make all the footage and produces all the graphical content and things like that. So big up.
Yeah, thanks, Kim, very much. I mean, a lot of hard work being putting on that end as well. And I guess the video sums it up already, right? Kind of, we're now launching our Patreon that we are having live as of a few days ago already, because we wanted to make sure that it worked, everything was fine there. And yeah, I mean, it kind of the vision, what we're trying to do already conveys already a little bit in the video. So it's not only the Sxratch visualizer, which you guys might have seen already, right? But it's also all this other stuff. So it's plugins. It's basically we're taking the roots that we have in Turntablism, and we kind of been trying to see how else can you adapt this kind of playing styles in other areas. And then when we started talking about that, I think we kind of quite quickly made the bridge to, okay, so if we don't even think about Turntablism, how can you make making music easier, or making visuals easier, or how do you teach kind of being creative to kids, for instance. Nowadays, if you want to be creative as a kid, I think people say, go learn to play the piano, go learn to play the guitar, or paint something. The barriers of entry are quite high, so we've kind of been thinking about how can we make this easier. Yeah, in that area, I think we're trying to make things, so either products or software, and we have some really cool prototypes already, which we haven't even seen yet, but that we are playing around with. And I think the only thing what we're lacking is time, really. It's time and money. That's pretty much in the end what we're lacking.
Yeah.
We have we don't have a shortage of ideas. That's there's always. I think what's nice when we're talking. So we talk usually a couple of times a week with the three of us, and then I've had at least some notions where somebody says something and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that's actually cool, and we could also do this, and we could also do so and so, and it right away starts to mushroom into more ideas, and that's sometimes a little bit challenging, right? That how do we channel that into something that it makes sense still? And I think we're succeeding in it pretty well, but it's also really exciting to have these kind of ideas and then realize that, hey, why don't we do this?
Yeah, and I mean, all the brainstorming things, intellectual properties and ideas for application, these are the one side, but the other side, which is also important or on the same level, is the business side, how to organize everything. When we, facing to, we start a Kickstarter project regarding the I/O controller, how to get the manufacturer, how to hire someone who does the product design and things like that. There are so many different fields of experience what we have to learn, and it's really a journey. It's not just about ideas, about being creative. The whole business thing, it's a huge impact for us as well. Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. I agree. So yeah, I think I mean the video explains some things. We're going to be sharing more stuff on on our Patreon for sure with the people who are there already. And if you're not there yet, then please join. I mean, we really want to do a lot of stuff in there as well. And that will become more clear as we have more time to spend with all this stuff. But like I said, I think the last couple of months we've been really kind of scrambling to get the Sxratch visualizer out in a good way, that we were happy with it also, and we had a vision of how it can be used. A lot of cool ideas there, I think, as well, that we are having already for the pro version. There's more to come. I think from here we will take some questions. If you guys have questions, I already saw some stuff in the chat. I already answered some things there. If you have any questions around the Sxratch visualizer or Sxratch as a company or something else, then please shoot it in there. But we also got some questions beforehand already from people who've been reaching out to us through our email or Facebook page and things like that, and we kind of summarize that. Alex, I think you have a list there of stuff, right, where we kind of took out some examples.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can start, or let's refer to the first question here in the chat from Klaus regarding TTM. The whole discussion with TTM, for us, it is really important to be a fair player in terms of what we use. Are there any intellectual properties? It is important to understand that the Sxratch visualizer as a concept or as a way how to visualize scratching in real time, it's an analyzing tool, It's some slightly different to TTM, because TTM it's an average, a graphical solution somehow. But we reached out to John Coluccio, who is a trademark or one of the trademark holders of TTM. He published the first Sxratch book, which includes TTM, and we have a pretty great relationship with him. And we shared the credits to TTM. That's regarding this whole topic. The other thing, what is maybe important, where do we see a new impact for turntablism? This was one of the questions. And because some of the people say, hey, scratching is an old-fashioned style of making music, that's right. But we see an impact due to the fact that the method of sound generation using fader and using disc is completely new in comparison to traditional concept like keys or strings like that. And then we thought about what is the new impact? And the new impact will be generated when we find a link to the realm of music production. That means how can we use scratching to modulate, to generate certain parameters in Ableton, for example, on a DAW. And here we have some pretty cool applications, some ideas how to do this. And the other thing is that that's a thing Nick came up with. How can we apply this into for video production or for gaming and things like that? Because one thing is for sure, the idea of scratching to touch a sound by hand, and we do it by hand, and modulate a sound by hand. This is completely unique to every other instrument in the world. And this is something which is not an old-fashioned style, it's a new style. And that brought us to another idea. What does it mean in terms of equipment? What is the super future turntable instrument? And I probably, the most of you guys will say, okay, the future turntablist is maybe someone who plays just completely in the air, may do some crazy things like that. And all these ideas came to our mind. And we found a pretty good solution, the I/O controller. We can present this a little bit later, which is a touch-based hardware controller. And this device represents actually everything where we see that will bring a new impact to turntablism. That means we create a bridge to music production on the DAW. We create a bridge to video production, to gaming, and using the gestures which are so representative for turntablism, like fader control, and this whole Sxratch gesture. That's the whole idea and the new impact in a way. Yeah. Yep. And the other thing, what Bob mentioned, that we try to make it accessible for everyone. No matter what playing skills you have, touch it, get experience, play it, and make music with it. This is our goal. No matter if you're a professional turntable, beginner, make electronic music, whatever. That's our big headline. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for a lot of these things, we have really great ideas, and at the same time, we don't really know if it will work. So we've made some prototypes, and we see some cool stuff, but we're trying that out. So basically, maybe some things will never see the light of day, and that's fine. But we want to try out these kind of things. This is also where we want to give our Patreons kind of an option to kind of suggest stuff like, hey, how about, can you also do this? And usually the question is always, yeah, we probably can. But the question is, does it make sense for a lot of people? And how much time do you need to spend in developing it? And then, what kind of value does it bring? Actually, let's take a question from the chat here. So DJC4 asked, can you discuss some of your ideas for training potential with the Sxratch visualizer? Like Q&A practice routines, and obviously the whole education piece is kind of something where we as a company are seeing potential and kind of also where a large audience should be. But in terms of only looking at scratching and the Sxratch visualizer, for sure, I mean, I think everybody's familiar with Guitar Hero and those kind of tools. Those have been out there for quite a while already. And something like that with scratching definitely is something foreseeable. But here you need to also a little bit ask yourself that, who's going to be using that? Is it going to be sort of the seasoned turntablist who really wants to understand, how his cuts are visualized in the end? And he can see what he's trying to do. Does it actually work out? Or is it rather for people who are totally new to turntablism and they just want to understand how they need to do, let's say, a one-click flare or something, and they don't understand it when they're just reading about it, or even if they see somebody else doing it. So that's a little bit of a difficult topic overall. But for sure, we already are working on stuff. On the one hand, I think it's for analyzing what you've just done. So what Alex already said. I mean, I think a good analogy is, if you have like something like TTM, which is really a notation language, that's how you make sort of your sheet music in a way. So you write it down and you have a composition. It's kind of like a language, just like Spanish. But then when somebody speaks that, or when somebody's scratching live and you interpret that, that's a whole different thing. So we can only go off of what we are hearing and what we capture as data. The great thing is that we have a lot of data. So of course it sounds pretty simple. You have a crossfader event, and then you have a vinyl movement, you have speed, and you have direction. But actually, when you start to analyze that, you can do some pretty cool things. So you can, together with like a beat grid, which we've already implemented in our test versions, you can actually see, are you kind of doing your clicks in time with the beat, and where are they positioning themselves, and where are your turning points of your vinyl. And in theory, you could map all of that to sort of a score. You could say, are you kind of on on the right track to perform this kind of scratch that you should be doing. So definitely there we're looking at how we can do that, and it will I think it will be somewhat of kind of blend between, let's say, what you would see in Guitar Hero, where you have things that you need to do at a certain time. But we also want it to be so that you can basically stop your performance and see what you did, and then analyze and see, hey, this sounded cool. What did I actually do? Right? I mean, it's also a little bit of that. Do you want to add on to that, Alex? What do you think in terms of education? Is it sort of...
Yeah. I mean, in terms of just based on the experience we got so far the last weeks from different schools. I mean, people like Babu who work, or these guys as well, work for the Beat Junkies school. They test it out, and also based from our experience, when you have kind of like a visualization of what you're doing, then it's a completely another way of learning, because actually in the old-fashioned style of scratch education was, you have to, you getting to know, you have to use the fader and the record, and then it should sound like the, or you had to set a cut point in the forward motion or things like that. And it's really abstract, for people who have absolutely no clue. But when you have now a visualization and you can see, now when I play like this and when I set the cut point, it goes on time period, then you have another tool for learning, And in terms of education, we think it's much more efficient in a way, And the other thing is, just for my background, I've also invented a music theory for turntablism. It's called S notation, what I present at music universities. And what I've learned so far is when you bring more music theory into the realm of turntablism and scratching in general, it will create a big impact to the culture, A good example are, for example, turntablists who have some experience with traditional music instruments, like Rafik, for example. He's a trained classical musician, or parents are professional musicians. He played a classical instrument since he was 6 or something like that. And here you can really hear the difference in comparison to other turntablists, because he got this rhythmical skills. He got really this experience from childhood on. And based on this training, education concept, music theory, everything together, visualization, we see a big impact that scratching can become better in a way using this tool.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Nick?
No, I think you guys have covered it really quite well. I think, one of the interesting things about watching your scratches in real time is really kind of demystifying some of the very fine movements that are part of your unique style. And everybody is unique, even if they're trying to perform something rudimentary like a baby or a tear or something like that. I've even observed arguments about whether or not someone's performing a certain scratch correctly, and they're sort of trying to draw diagrams, saying, this is what I'm doing. It's like, no, I'm doing that. It's like, all right, well, let's just see what the difference is by actually observing the result. And And it was interesting
Yeah.
to see that the people were having this sort of disagreement, ended up on sort of middle ground and saying, oh, your slight change in inflection or velocity or something along this part of the cut made your version of it distinctly different to mine, and it may have been a millisecond or two of difference between a fader or vinyl technique, and that was a really interesting thing to observe. So those very fine motor movements make a very big impact.
And another big thing is due to the fact that you can use every form of sound on a turntable. I mean, you can play everything, I don't know, voice, drums, violin. There's no other instrument who can do that. Maybe a sampler or synthesizer. But in terms of the turntable, it's important that we have now a visual tool which just focus on the mechanical movement without the acoustic, because then when you just focus on this execution, you have also another way of training, of get your training skills and things like that. And that's why this visualizer is so important.
For sure.
Yep. Yeah, maybe last thing I will say about that, and we can take the next question. I actually did use Google Translate to translate the French question. I don't speak any French, but I'll get to that in a bit. But one thing which we've also been working on, because there's obviously a lot of DJ schools and academies out there who've already reached out to us, and we're talking to some of them as well, how they can be utilizing this. And obviously, what makes sense is if you could kind of record your own session and then you say, hey, I sort of did, this scratching routine or this kind of pattern, or at least I think I did. And then you send it over to your teacher and they will load it in and they can see actually these are the points where you kind of, you're offbeat or you're on beat, or when you are having these tools to analyze it, they can give you direct feedback of exactly what you're doing wrong. Maybe you're moving your fader, you're slightly too early with opening it up or closing it, and that's why it doesn't sound the way it should be sounding. Or maybe you're not on time, so you're one half beat behind or something. These kind of things. So also some kind of import export type of thing next to analyzing it. So basically being able to go back in your routine, freezing it and basically going back in the waveform, if you will. Those kind of things we're looking into. And there's a nice bridge there to what else could we do with this data, but we'll get to that in a bit. I think there was one question from let's see here, from Steve Ido Mene, so that's in French. He's asking basically, is the version already available? What's the price? When's the official release? And is there a download link? So our patrons can actually download the software already as of now. So we just published it about half an hour ago. So this is when you're on Patreon, then you can get both the Windows and the OS X versions 1.0, and that's how it works. And maybe that's also a good opportunity for me to mention why we went with Patreon. On the one hand, it makes sense because a lot of creative people are on there, but at the same time, building a mechanism, to have subscribers or getting payments in even, and having a customer register nowadays with GDPR and all that kind of other legal hassle, it's just a pain. And we already mentioned, like, one thing we're lacking is maybe time as well as money, and we want to do cool stuff. We want to make cool things. So we kind of, at some point, we realized that maybe we should just try out some other options that already are working. So we chose Patreon for that, and we'll see how that goes. So far, it's been pretty good. I think we can share content there and things like that, and it saves us time from not having to build a payment mechanism on our own website. Because that's obviously not trivial. I mean, we're not a huge company with a huge background. We kind of we're trying to bootstrap this, do cool stuff, and at the same time make some kind of money out of it as well. And then hopefully at some point in the future we can do this, full time. But for now, it's definitely still something where we are spending our weekends and nighttime hours on, because it's not feasible to do this full time at the moment yet. So Nick, it's available on Patreon, maybe in a nutshell.
Yeah, Nick, your mic is too.
I'm working.
Is it loud enough?
I've made some adjustments.
Okay, great. Here's another question from Klaus. Maybe Bob, you can refer on this. Is it possible to export the visual that I scratch? And the other one is the grid in the visualizer sync to the beat.
Yeah.
Maybe we can.
I can talk about both of those, I guess. I've been doing most of the development stuff, anyway, export the visuals. I mean, it really kind of literally you can just take a screenshot, obviously, and then you have your visual if you want. But I think what you mean is that can we get it into some other software? And at the moment we've been testing some things already. So one really cool thing which I have experience in is creating MIDI values or MIDI CCs or pitch bend or something like that out of data. And as I said, we have data. So creating a MIDI signal out of that is relatively trivial. So we've already been testing that, and you would be able to actually convert your your vinyl movement into a pitch bend signal, which we tried and it successfully basically read by Ableton or by some kind of other DAW. So that already works. But we are also looking into that. Can we make actual sort of data file of your vinyl movement and also your crossfader position that you could do something useful with in some kind of other software? And maybe in a bit, Nick can tell a little bit about our Ableton plugins that we've been working on so far. But one of the things we already realized is if we have the data, what if we could actually import this into a plugin or a VST, and then we could say, hey, these are some crossfader movements and some vinyl movements, and let's play back some samples and actually let's let it scratch for you based on what you did previously. And the cool thing about that would be that you can also change it to a different sample, but you would have exactly the same pattern and movements going on as what you performed. So maybe in a nutshell, we are working on this in various ways, either with MIDI or with actual data exports. But this is still really heavy in development, and we need to look at how does it make sense. But we're definitely looking into that. So it's not something that where we say it's just visual and that's it. We want to make more use out of it because then it can be, think about it this way, that somebody could make a pattern for you. And if you're not a scratcher, you're maybe a producer, you could load that in and then you could have it in your track. Similarly to where somebody would be playing the piano, but then this time they would be sending you a scratch sort of pattern, would be really cool to do, I think.
Yeah, and then you can use it like a VST instrument, You can, I don't know, you choose between different presets of sounds. You can use a violin or a guitar or things like that, and everything will be scratched. And this is exactly what we see as a new impact, because, I mean, there were several attempts from other programmers over the last years who tried to do that, to really create kind of like a interface where you can generate scratches and things like that. And this brings me to another thing that most or everything what we do is really based on a music theoretical concept, That means we really found out how scratching works really in its essence. What are the building blocks of scratching? And this is the requirement to come up with some applications which can generate fader techniques, which can create an interface between DVS and Ableton as a device to scratch some effects, to scratch equalizer, to scratch everything, and that's why Sxratch, that's why this X, the interface between everything, and exactly. This is just great,
I'll take the question about the beat grid still, and then maybe Nick, if you want to tell a little bit about the fade application, which also was in the video actually. The beat grid is a good one. Yes, it is actually synced to your beat, but you need to a little bit. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. So what we're using actually is Ableton Link. So we have a license for that, and we can actually you can have Serato or Tractor send out this link signal, and we can actually match that. So our kind of grid is the same BPM as what you send from your DVS software or from your DAW. So you can also send the link signal, obviously, from Ableton itself, and then we'll link to that tempo, and it will be exactly that. So you can kind of see. What you're hearing is also what you're seeing exactly there. So it's exactly on time with whatever you are sending the clock from. And I've tested this at length, and it works really, really well with understanding better kind of where does it sit, because obviously visualization is one thing, and then it might look good, but if you're not in time, or if you're too soon or too kind of too late with your movements or clicks, then it will sound different. And maybe it's a good difference. So if you want to be a little bit like behind or in front, you get sort of this, what is it, this shuffle, or what's it called, randomness in your patterns. But it works really well. So yeah, it is synced to whatever you sync your or send your Ableton Link signature with. Cool. Thanks for the question so far. Nick, do you want to tell a little bit about Fade application? Because that's something
Yeah,
you've
sure.
been working on.
Sure. So
plugin.
yeah, we'll wind it back a little bit. A lot of my focus over the last 12 months has been to develop Max for Live plugins, which are a way of being able to expand Ableton Live, particularly users of Ableton Live Suite, and basically it's a like sort of a coding playground that lets you develop custom plugins and workflow assistance for expanding your your music production and performance possibilities. So one of the concepts that we were working around was how could we mimic, or how could we introduce fader click type patterns into a DAW. And one way we approached that was by developing a if anyone's familiar with what a trance gate is a rhythmic audio gate that turns on and off, and generally there's some set patterns, but usually it behaves in a fairly static kind of way, and it only generally will affect the audio. What I've developed is a plugin which will allow you to design your own fader curve or a function curve, so something that goes from a 0 point to a it will take a particular length of time that you can set. So you can say, I want this particular fader pattern to take maybe 1 bar or half a bar or a 16th note or a 32nd note or something like that. And you can trigger each of these patterns by playing a MIDI key. So it could be a button on a modern DVS MIDI mixer. It could be a MIDI keyboard. It could be a MIDI controller that's capable of sending out notes. But each time you hit another key, you could load up a different preset. So you have a bank of 16 fader presets, and you're able to play and perform with these fader techniques not only to affect the audio, but you're actually free to map it to whatever parameter within the DAW you like. So within Ableton, you're able to perhaps map the fading value. You could map it to a filter cutoff, you could map it to a volume, you could map it to nearly any parameter that you can see within the digital audio workstation. So that's really exciting. It's a way that we're able to introduce sort of turntablist-like patterns into the production realm, and
One side note to this, which also applies to the Scratch visualizer thing, and also what I mentioned before in terms of the building blocks, from the music theoretical principles. This applies also to the Fade application. It's not just open and close, Probably most of the people think scratching or fader techniques just consist of open and close. That's right, in terms of the mechanical concept. But when you break it down to gestures, then you have different concepts. You have a transformer, you have a reverse transformer, then you have guys who use a hamster switch, then the ones who use a regular scratch mode, and everything differs a little bit in terms of the acoustic. Some slightly differences, and the Fade application is really something with specified, which really breaks down everything in detail, that you can really switch between all these different techniques. And the same applies for the Scratch visualizer working currently, that we not just visualize an open and a close motion, but instead that we also visualize if you play a transformer, or if you play a reverse transformer, or if you play a crab, because that's what's all about. It's all about gestures, how to use your fingers, and that's the so-called building blocks of turntablism or fader techniques in this regard.
Yeah, what I really like about this, that like Nick said, we kind of take this one element of turntablism, in this case with these fader patterns, if you want to call it that, and then you can apply it to all kinds of other production stuff.
Yeah, that's
which is really interesting. And I think this is a good example of the stuff that we're trying to do. Like how can it make sense in other areas? Yeah, I think that's a good summary. That's coming soon as well. It will be available also for our kind of patrons. In at least in the pro tier for sure. And I think we need to do some example videos of how it exactly works because I've seen it and I think it's great. I mean, it's really cool. So you know, you could have it on and you can scratch over that sort of pattern, and then you know it's kind of like the Vestax Samurai mixer where kind of it does cuts for you. Kind of it's really interesting.
That's cool. Also in terms of education, great, you know, when you want to try to hear how does a drum scratching pattern in combination with the 3-click flare played as a triplet, yeah, then you can really set up this in the Fate application. Then you can just focus on the record control, and the Fate application generates the fader clicks from you, and this is pretty cool because you get acoustical feedback how it should sound like, and then you can train this, you know, and that's really the thing. And the other thing is make it accessible for everyone. That means an electronic music producer, he can use the Fate application, he can try out something, create some scratching. And the cool, I mean, some of the people will say it's this hardcore traditional turntable, say, oh man, you stole our culture, you know, you make it accessible for this electronic freaks, and what do they have to do with our culture and things like that. This is not how we see music, you know. Everyone is on the same level, and we can make the best public relation for the culture when we bring it to the audience, you know, because right now scratching is really a niche. It's an elitaire community. Everyone knows each other, and this is somehow it's stocked somehow, you know. And we want to open up the bridges. We want to bring it to everyone. Everyone should do it, and that's the best public relation for the culture, to legitimize it as a culture. Yeah.
Definitely true. Good words. So there was a question from Klaus, and there's actually 2 Klaus in the chat I noticed, but this is from Klaus Kilski. Klaus Kilski. Are we in talks with Serato Tractor or Virtual DJ? And no, we are not. But even if it would be, maybe we wouldn't be able to talk about it. So that a little bit depends. But no, I mean, I think this is kind of what also Alex said. So if you think about DJs within sort of the music you know, audience, that's already a niche, and then turntable is even more of a niche. So when we're specifically thinking about what we currently have been heavily working on, which is the Sxratch visualizer, doesn't make much sense. I mean, you know, to talk to these guys, and also I don't think we necessarily need them right now. So
exactly.
I mean, I'd rather talk to people who are making hardware, to be honest. You know, in any case, we're not talking to them right now. Maybe in the future we will. We actually talk to anybody who reaches out to us. So we have been talking to people in the industry, other enthusiasts, and people to collaborate also, and even educational facilities. You know, I mean, like I said, we're just kind of trying to make sense of it out of this all, and we want to do the right kind of things. And for sure, some of the things we are doing will get people to ask questions, and maybe they want to collaborate, and we're open to all of that. So we'll talk to anybody, because if it makes sense, we'll do it.
Yeah, but the other thing is that, you know, this is part of the culture, the DJ culture. There are the freaks who actually creates the technology, the ideas, who will adapt from the industry later, and then they make money from it, you know. And we are in a position that we can make this journey by ourselves, and that's why Patreon is so important for us, that we have really the fundament to create this business, to do everything step by step, because it's not our goal to, I don't know, to team up with we are the new kids on the block, you know. We want to find our path by ourselves and see what's happened. The industry is complicated.
And I mean, this is true for this industry, but we're kind of like a startup in that sense, for sure. I mean, this is true in a lot of industries. You know, there's kind of small players who are doing really cool things, and sometimes they really blow up and they get bought by Google. You know, but it's not our goal. We just want to do cool things. And it is also said in the video actually, which we showed earlier. But when you have all these ideas, and especially when you start to bring this out and you start to talk to people, you need to have some kind of legal kind of boundary that you're protected with your intellectual property rights and these kind of things. So that's the reason also that we want to have the company. It makes it easier for us. We're more protected, and then in the end of the day, if it goes somewhere, that's also a good foundation. Because just as a hobby, in your bedroom and doing that doesn't make too much sense. There's a lot of guys who are trying to do that, and I mean, I think I'm now 43, and I think I'm old enough already to know that if you want to make something work, you need to do it a little bit smart also, and it needs to make sense. But yeah, I think if it's cool enough, we'll probably try to do it, and then if it makes sense, and then people are happy with this and they want to buy it and stuff, great. That's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
But like Alex said, we're kind of also the in that sense kind of the nerds who will try out really crazy stuff, and then in the end, if we think, hey, this is cool, but nobody will ever use it, then it won't be launched. But that's fine. I mean, we'll have fun building it, and that's also a really important part of it. I think that we have fun while we do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick, you wanted to say something earlier. So
I was just
interrupted you.
no, that's okay. I think one of the differences between perhaps communicating directly with one of the big sort of DVS players like Traktor or Serato, that kind of removes us from the discussion with the actual community, and that's probably the main reason why we decided to go with the Patreon, because we would like our audience, or we would like our community to contribute ideas or actually influence what we're building. So to an extent, we're building custom stuff effectively for you. So it's I guess a good analogy would be something like if you go to a party with a a fairly mainstream beer, no one's going to ask you about where what's with that Foster's beer or that VB or something like that. But if you have like a craft beer or something that's interesting, people will be like, well, that's interesting, what's that? And you actually may be able to say, well, it's brewed down the road, I know the guys who do it, I had some I gave some feedback on how it was produced, on how to produce it or something like that. So if you take that analogy to what we're trying to do, is like we're trying to address the things that you don't normally get from the bigger players. So usually you'll jump onto a user forum, and it's mostly just troubleshooting and support. People don't know how to get something to work, or they're having a particular issue. Where what's different for us is we want to be actually taking on board your feedback and requests to actually build something that's useful for you, and something that you can discuss with your colleagues or competitors or whoever else is interested. I think it's a very interesting thing.
Exactly. That's the thing, you would like to take you on the journey. You can give, or you have the possibility to give feedback, to I don't know, to share ideas behind the scenes, and I think these different options are pretty valuable in a way to get more insight into a company who try to produce some cool stuff, and I hope you guys like it, and you become Patreon. That will be really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to wrap up pretty soon. There was one question still about if we are familiar with the Wave Traveler plugin in Fruity Loop Studio, and I've actually used this, I think in 2007 or something, or even before that, like a long time ago. And this was before, I think I had Final Scratch at the time, or maybe not even that. And I was trying to basically, make some scratches out of custom vocals. And I remember in the Wave Traveler back then, I'm not sure what it looks like now. I haven't seen it in a long time. But it sounded really kind of electronic, and I was having trouble kind of making the sort of natural waves or drawing them. I remember that, but I haven't seen it in a while myself. Have you guys used it, or even used Fruity Loop Studio? I mean, I haven't even opened that like in years.
Yeah, I've used this, I don't know, 12 years ago or something like that. I my first DAW, pretty cool for creating beats, but then I switched to Ableton, and now I'm happy actually.
I'm a current FL user. I try to sort of jump between a number of different DAW sort of setups. They all have their benefits for different things. But yeah, it's we're trying to do some things that are slightly different to that. But it's definitely a very cool technology, and massive props to the Image Line guys. I know that they put in a lot of work to make a very sort of pristine product.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Cool.
Hey, I think any last words? I mean, okay, now Klaus is asking how complicated the setup process. It's pretty straightforward for the Sxratch visualizer. So you need to select obviously your gear and things like that. But once it's set up, you can save the settings and then you should be good to go. There's some instructions with the actual package when you download it, so that should help you through it. But if you don't get through it, then you're on the Patreon, then you can get support on our Discord, and we'll help you through that. It really depends. This is one of the challenges I think that we've had, that everybody's setup is different. You know, they have different computers, different versions of OS, whether it's Windows or OS X, and different mixers, all that kind of stuff, different DVS systems. So it's very difficult to say this is how you need to do it. And actually, one thing which is interesting, and I think you guys will agree that I've been working with other DJs or turntablists over the last, I think maybe 6-7 years more often. And I mean, I've realized that a lot of guys are having super expensive equipment, so they have the latest, Pioneer mixer, and they have like really expensive turntables and things like that, and they have no idea how to route their audio into their mixer. So I get people asking me like, hey, so I want to have my kind of Vestax 06 routed to my S9. How do I do that? Because I can't get any sound out, and I'm just thinking it's not that difficult. But so what I've learned in that, what my point is that obviously, even though if we think it's simple, and I think it's simple, you might need help, and we're here to support. So generally, it's pretty simple. But if your OS is different, or it's the newest or the latest, so there was some issues with Big Sur. I remember, we're happy to help out with that, because we can't mimic each and every situation. Generally, either it goes right away and it's easy, or if it doesn't, we'll help out. But once it's set up and it works, then it's a matter of hitting the save button, and then you won't need to touch it ever again. So in that sense, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, maybe finally we can share some information about the Patreon tiers, what we offer, or is it not necessary? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think people can read it themselves there. But the gist really being that right now, I think we have quite a few cool ideas for our other applications and products as well, including the Sxratch visualizer.
Exactly.
And right now, we don't have all the time in the world to work on all of it. So by being a Patreon, you can influence what we are working on. You can even vote on, hey, you need to make, let's say, a beat juggle option with 2 decks, or rather focus on education and import and export of the actual wave into Ableton. So which one of those 2 is more important? So those kind of things you can influence as a Patreon. So we'll basically want to get the feedback from you guys on what is important to work on, because otherwise we would decide, and that's of course also one angle. But the beauty of Patreon is that you can get people to basically decide with you and give feedback, maybe, and even do beta testing of the other features to see if it makes sense. So I think that's kind of maybe the key thing. So we want to take people on board so that what they are paying for will also end up sort of in the product itself. So you really have an option to influence how we will build the thing, in the first place.
Yeah. And on top of that, for your music producers, or like to invest more into this music production realm, you get all the applications for free. When you become a top tier Patreon, it's €5 per month, and this is pretty cool because all these applications are just great. This is what I can say from my perspective. We will share some demo videos within the next weeks, and on top of that, you get all sample packs, some scratched drums, vocals, some synths, what you can use for your music production. And this is pretty valuable, that you get also some real content, some which
Yep.
are just a benefit in the end.
Yeah, maybe kind of as a general thing, which is for everybody. What we also are sharing is I think what Alex already said, but it's basically the behind the scenes. So what else do we do, and what does it take to develop a software product, and how do we code it? And where do you start, or when you do a hardware product, how do you guys go about it? So if you are interested in those kind of things, or how do you do marketing? These are all things which are also happening. So it's not only in this case, people have seen a Sxratch visualizer, but if you set up a company, you need to think about all these other things as well. I personally had a lot of fun in for instance, when we were thinking about our brand name, which ended up being Sxratch with an X, so it's kind of everywhere Sxratch, or Sxratch into all kinds of areas, and then designing the logo and stuff like that together, and coming up with the sound logo as well, which Alex did a lot of great work on. That kind of stuff. We built everything, literally from scratch. So it was all an idea, and these things we also will share in the behind the scenes. So we'll take you guys also with us in that how do we basically go about running this journey, and what do we need to look at, and what are maybe the challenges, and maybe what are cool things that we've figured out, or where we want to share kind of what we learned along the way.
And another great tool is our Discord channel. We have really an exclusive Discord channel where we host some monthly discussions, streams, covering different topics, also Sxratch techniques, education, deriving new Sxratch techniques, things like that, all this nerd stuff, which is just a small community, which can be bigger and bigger, and we are open for every idea, every topic, every application field, everything.
Exactly. I think that's those are good words to end off with. Nick, any last words from you?
Great.
We did get one question over the email is what sort of equipment what equipment or software would I need to make use of these products? And it's a good question, because we don't want anyone to not have the right things, or sort of jump in without knowing what a requirement is. And I would say one of the most important things is to have a modern DVS system. So that's a version of Traktor or Serato, but a mixer that is capable of MIDI output. So that could be anything like a Rain 62, 72, 70, or a Pioneer S7, S9, S11, or any number of other different modern mixers. Being able to play with MIDI from your console is a big part of how we're actually trapping the data and making use of it. And furthermore, it would be good to, if you're interested in our production tools, to have a version of Ableton Live Suite with the Max for Live enabled, which is part of that package. And that way you'll be able to sort of load up our Max for Live plugins, and you can even sort of have a quick look under the hood and try to make some tweaks and stuff yourself. And that'll be one interesting part of the journey with us as well, is that you'll actually probably learn some Max MSP coding techniques from either myself or Bob, or and we'll be able to help you customize it if there is something that you would like specifically for the software to do that is very unique to your workflow. And I think that's one of the coolest things about modern audio production, is that everybody's workflow is slightly different, everybody's goals and methods are slightly different, and we want to celebrate that.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I mean, there's definitely some people who are still using the sort of the old school mixes and things like that, but generally we it's easiest to use the modern stuff, which a lot of people are having anyway, and usually if you have DVS, the Serato or Traktor, then usually you have a mixer that's also MIDI capable, but not always. So there's some exceptions there. I guess if people are unsure, then just reach out, and we'll kind of make sure that we can guide you in the right direction.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cool. Excellent.
Great.
I think we'll leave it here. So thanks everybody for joining tonight,
Yeah.
and hope you got something out of it. We got some good questions, which was great. Like Alex said, if you're interested in this kind of stuff and want to learn more about how we go on this journey together, but also in our actual product, software or hardware, then do join us and become a Patreon and support us in making this a reality. We're really excited. I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of good feedback from people they think we're doing great things. And we want to make it happen. So it's not only going to be something which we tease once on Instagram and then it never sees the light of day. I think we've all seen these kind of things coming up every now and then, but we actually want to make stuff actually really get out there. And we're committed to that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks everybody.
Also,
go ahead. You still have a last thing?
Also regarding this live stream, we can do it again. I don't know, in some weeks, just to inform you, or in case you have some questions, write something to us, and we can refer on that the next live stream. So we keep in touch, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks everybody. Have a nice evening, nice afternoon, or a nice
evening.
morning. If you're really far away, like Nick, then your day is just starting.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Okay.
Let's be in touch.